Welcome back to the show. It's all about money matters on this Wednesday morning. We're telling you how to go about your money. And of course, if you tend to want to just pinch at that particular loan, you want to take out a facility with a particular institution, we're letting you know how to go about it and why, by the way, it's so important for you to keep up with a good credit score, because it really does determine what you can access in future. We have the pleasure of having Grace Njogu here with us from Ngao Credit. She's giving us some great tips this morning. Grace, welcome back to the show. We managed to tease our topic as we always do on socials. We want to thank, by the way, the team for putting this together, our show assistant, Charlene in particular. Brenda, Madam Happiness, is our director this morning. Let's take a look at what Kenyans are saying or asking Grace, and then hopefully you can be able to respond to them. This one's in from Mitch, says, how can professional finance advice contribute to improving a credit score? That's good. I like that, because financial literacy is another monster in itself, and I think even just the access to it seems to be a challenge for so many people. All of us, in fact, is something that we can learn. So yeah, I mean, that's a good question. How even you as Ngao contributing to promoting financial literacy?
I think one of the ways we are contributing to financial literacy is that you'll find on our social pages, specifically LinkedIn, and some short skits we're doing on YouTube. We are talking about how people are getting into bad debt, and we're also telling you how not to do those things to get into bad debt. So we are making sure that we are generating content that's infotaining. That's we are informing you that's important to go through the T's and C's of the loan contract that you're going to sign, to make sure that you understand the interest, the fees, and the installments required to pay, so that you only get into what you are clear about. Number two, it's very important to know how they go about their debt recovery, what alternatives they give you in the event that you are in distress. And all this is found in the fine print. So one of the videos you'll find on our YouTube pages is we are demonstrating skits, just showing you that you need to actually make sure that you are getting yourself informed, not after you've borrowed and things have gone wrong, but as you are taking out the loan. But additionally, we are participating in these conversations here and other TV stations, where we want to be a thought leader in the space, not only to ask people to borrow, but to be responsible borrowers.
Responsible borrowers, that's the key word.
Yes, responsible borrowers. So that we agree debt is good. It can be able to allow you to leverage opportunities you ordinarily would not be able to. But there, as the question that the viewer has asked is, what financial advice should you seek? What are you borrowing for?
Remember, we talked about that. What's the purpose?
What's the purpose? So that will always
Your
be
why.
The why. Why are you borrowing? And I will even I'll say here that there are different lenders for different kinds of financial needs. So educating yourself as to which lender is good for what, then that's always a good idea. Number two, start with saving. You need to be able to, in Kenya, I think the culture is borrowing without saving. I'd advise a lot of people is start with the culture of saving, so that every time you're borrowing, you are complementing what you already have. So that you're not borrowing and you are going to have a new financial obligation, and if you are going to, the entire financial obligation will be a loan. So typically I'd like a good balance of savings and borrowings to be able to allow you to leverage opportunities. But also ask your financial advisors about debt consolidation. I have a debt with I&M, I have another debt with Mwananchi, I have another debt with Ngao, I have a debt. So can you be able to consolidate these loans so that you have a single installment that falls due on a single day, so that you are not under distress? Because can you imagine you've borrowed from 3 financial institutions, different times of the month. One comes end month, one at the beginning of the month, one at the middle of the month. You're constantly servicing debts. You will surely get stuck up at some point, because some obligations are going to fall through, and indeed you will be in a very bad situation with debt collection officers from those financial institutions. So my recommendation strongly is, if you're going to talk to your financial advisor, agree, is this purpose for borrowing for this financial institution, this type? Then there are circles, there are banks, there are microfinance institutions, there are digital lenders. Which borrowing from which financial institutions? Understand the T's and C's, and also if where you have more than one debt, consolidate. Yes.
I like it. I like it. Next one, Brenda. Also, congratulations, you're a YouTube star. Sebastian, good morning. Is it better to pay off credit card debt in full each month or keep a small balance? Okay. I don't know. What, what do you think?
So a credit card debt is what we're saying an overdraft, a revolving.
Right.
It could get you stuck in debt because it has an interest component. Every time you pay with an interest component, which means if you had a credit debt of 50,000, when you're paying 55.
Okay.
You reborrow. So you are constantly digging yourself into debt. My advice, and I don't know whether this is the typical advice, credit card debt is not for everyone. It is for people there is a reason for borrowing, an urgent reason. So they should take care of emergencies, things we cannot foresee.
Right.
And not for survival. Yeah, so every time when a revolving debt is for survival, it does not get you out of debt. It sinks you deeper in debt. How to get out of credit debt is to pay slowly. Don't pay once, because immediately you pay, for example, you earn 100, you pay a debt of 50. You are now at less 50,000, so it's very hard for you to survive. You'll be forced to borrow again.
Right.
Yeah, I typically would recommend that you pay 10 and then 10 and 10 as you're leaving the credit card debt. But I don't encourage them. As where I stand, I don't think they are advisable for consuming. They are not debt for consuming. They are for emergencies, and we need to think about them like that.
Right, for a rainy day. All right, let's take a look at our third one, and then we can get back in the conversation. We have a Max here, Grace, who says young people are always borrowing on mobile apps. What advice can you give us on how to be a good candidate? I'm assuming for more borrowing.
Okay. Yeah. So first, I like the availability of credit on digital apps. I really like it's quite advanced. I think Kenya, because of our mobile money situation, we have more credit lenders in Kenya than any other part of Africa. And maybe Nigeria would be second there.
Okay, but that says a lot about us.
Yes. And the conversation, I think, before the current bill, the Data Protection Act, was around distress following a lot of mobile debt, when they were calling your relatives, your colleagues, your employer, and they were causing you a lot of stress and panic. What is my advice? You need to pay all the debts you borrow to be able to qualify for more debt. The challenge with this, the digital lenders, is that typically they are very expensive. 20%, 15%, and it's not sustainable to constantly borrow and pay, Yeah. You will develop debt fatigue because one time you'll have exhausted the credit limit.
Yes.
Where you, for example, pay 50,000 and they cannot lend you 50,000. They'll say that 20,000 was interest, 30,000 was the principal. Anytime when you get into a situation where you have paid money and you cannot be able to reborrow the same amount of money, you develop debt fatigue. So my advice is pay off the debt and don't borrow unless you need it. Unfortunately, I think this advice will fall on deaf ears.
Yes, because there's someone who's borrowing right now because Arsenal or whoever, I don't know, let me ask Sarah about football. Yeah. Like whoever is playing this week will have to be borrowing in order to bet. Yeah. You know, that's the thing. I think the trick here is the easier it is to get, the higher the price you pay. So there's a lot of risk associated with mobile app borrowing. You know? Yes. And there is a lot of risk because these people already have a lot of data about how you get your finances. So most of the credit decisioning being made on digital apps is very informed. Yeah. And because it's very informed, unfortunately, it can lead you into our debt hole. Yeah. So a lot of wokeness or savviness needs to be given to our youth, especially those one in university, people who are just out of school, as to why borrow. The culture of also living above our means could be a problem because we need to generate income so that we can be able to borrow. Correct. So borrowing is not a source of income because it has an interest component, which is an expense. It is. Yes. So we need to educate our young people that borrowing is not a source of income. Betting. The house always wins. In fact, this is a joke. It is. The house always wins. So it doesn't matter how long you've been winning. A time will come and you will lose. Right. So I think the education is not being done at the right level. I think, I don't know, universities, when we were going there, I think there were not a lot of mobile apps. Yes, for sure. Of course. And the disadvantage also in borrowing a lot of digital loans is that they collect a lot of your data using your mobile phone. Now, this is not good. You should not have a situation where a lender has too much information about you because sometimes the advertising is borderline on
exploiting, data exploitation. So for us, I think for the government is regulation, making sure that the data that the digital lenders are allowed to maintain is reasonable, not too much data, because in as much the data is good for product development, it's bad that somebody should have too much of your data, especially because I think you consent to too many terms and conditions without reading the fine print. So the government, I think, is where they need to now regulate these digital lenders and say, okay, this is the amount of data you need to maintain.
Yeah. We have about 6, I think, or 7 minutes or so. Brenda also tells me by the way the season is off. So finally, like, we're free from this. There's no football until when? Until August. Oh God, there is a God. Anyway, I'm going to be killed by football fanatics right now, but honestly speaking, I'm kind of happy about that. Let's get back into now this huge issue. You know, very many Kenyans kept talking about CRB, you know, mentioning just loosely talking about the Credit Reference Bureau, but not necessarily understanding its role and what it does. So here you are, you're a hopper. Okay, you want to move from Gao, you want to move to another institution, you want to try and get from Tala, like the way you're talking about, maybe you're trying to access, you know, loans or facilities from different institutions. But then here comes this monster called CRB that's standing in the way. So break it down to us about what the Credit Reference Bureau is all about, how it works, how it has changed the landscape of borrowing and lending.
Okay. So first and foremost, the Credit Reference Bureau is a concept that is not only here, it's world over.
Yeah.
This is where all financial institutions are going to be able to process your data and list people who've borrowed with the Credit Reference Bureau. It allows other lenders to be able to check the credit history of the person that is a prospective borrower for them. So for the financial institutions, it is fantastic. The sharing of data across financial institutions allows them to be able to make very good decisions as to who to lend to, who not to lend to. The flip side for us as borrowers, because you and I, not only as a chief commercial officer, I also borrow. As a borrower, it allows, we need to be very disciplined, especially with our financial obligations. And the aliveness that every financial lender, especially those that are regulated by the central bank, have been given permission to list the your credit history with the credit reference bureaus. So if you borrow, for example, from, I think, a lender like Gao, which is regulated by the Central Bank of Kenya, they are required by law to list your credit history with the credit reference bureaus. It allows that if somebody is going to give you a loan from I&M, from somewhere else, for them to be able to check your credit reference, see how well you're scoring, and to be able to decide what amount to give you and at what interest rates. So for credit reference bureau, it's not a bad thing, because if you're a good borrower, a responsible borrower, the same is captured in the Credit Reference Bureau, which means that now, unlike Kitambo, where I think it was 2021, where there was a freeze of listing because of the COVID times, now there is no freeze. It means that if you borrow, you must have a plan to pay. So this financial advice we are offering, and I think other financial experts are going to be offering us to how do you manage debt, how do you borrow for income generating activities, and how do you match your borrowing to when the payments are expected. Now is more important now when there's a lot more data sharing than before.
Here's a good question. How does your credit score affect other areas of your life? I think we also just have a very tunnel vision towards the aspect of borrowing and think, okay, fine, maybe it's just Gao Credit who will ban me. But then when you start chomoing your statements everywhere you go, then you come and start realizing, hey, you mean this thing actually matters. So yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
I was seeing something online about people who had won green cards. So when you're applying for your visas, I think many of us have been applying for our visas, you are required to submit financial statements. They will also do a background check on your credit referencing with the credit reference bureaus. So those are some of the things. If you are trying to get a visa to go maybe to relocate to another country, they will be checking your credit history. They are not trying to take people who are not paying debts to their country so they can default loans from those countries. That's number one. Number two, a lot of people who are seeking jobs now, especially white collar jobs, we will be pulling your credit reference bureaus, and I'll speak about many people who are many organizations are going to be pulling your credit reference bureau.
Yeah.
How well you are able to pay your loans is a demonstration of how responsible you are.
Wow.
And now we are talking about other areas of your life, how well you manage finances. So typically these people, if you want to work in a good organization and if you want to work maybe in a good NGO, they will want to see your credit score and it will decide that you are the right person for the job or you're not the right person for the job. And I think for a lot of us who are young people and we are being enticed by the digital lenders, I think it's long-sighted vision is that, am I going to be able to pay this loan?
Right.
What are the consequences of me taking a loan of 10,000, not paying? I'm now listed. And now when I'm going to get a job where I can afford to pay this 10,000, but I have to jump through hoops. Yes. Because once your record is with CRB, it will take time for it to be withdrawn until you clear your loan. And typically, the record stays for almost 5 years, performing loans performing with default history. You can see the credit reference has many things. They're performing, non-performing loans, performing loans with default history. And they all affect your score. I told you the score is between 250 being the bad score and 900 being a good score. So you could be currently paying loans, but you have a history in the past of having not paid loans. So it will catch up with you. Okay. So my advice to young people is take out loans, true, but pay them. There is no escape. And as the world is becoming digital, a lot more information is being shared. In a few years, there will be nowhere to hide. If you take a hustler fund, you take a Tala, you take a loan from a microfinance, these people will be all able to share this information. I think South Africa is a good example of where people can even give you a lot of money without you having any security because the data sharing is a lot. So it's an advantage that we allow our many institutions to share data. Because now the credit decisioning moves away from what asset can you give me. It goes to this person has a very good credit history. And so with or without an asset, we can be able to advance them this amount of money.
Fantastic. I think I want to give you the opportunity, Grace, to let our viewers know should they want consultation or they want to reach out more because, they also probably want to access, your resource hub for all this financial literacy. How can they get in touch? Where can they get this information? And then we can say, go ahead, Rick, time is up.
Okay. So first and foremost, as Chief Commercial Officer Ngao Credit, a lot of the material on our platform, that's YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, a lot of this material is for entertainment and education, especially about how people get into bad debt, how to get out of bad debt. Additionally, you can be able to leave your contact on our platforms so that we can be able to walk you through the journey of getting out of debt. Most of our loans are asset-based loans. We are now almost launching a new product, product where we're going to be lending without assets. We're going to be lending to employed persons. We'll be using Credit Reference Bureau. It's the topic for today. We're going to be launching our payday loans soon. And when we're going to be using the Credit Reference Bureau, we'll now afford loans to people who do not typically have assets like motor vehicles. So karibuni Ngao, it's ngaocredit.com. It's Ngao Credit on our TikTok, our Facebook, our YouTube channels, and you'll get a lot of assistance. If you go to the website and you want to just make an inquiry, there's someone on standby just to be able to make sure they give you the best advice in a timely fashion.
Wow, thank you so much. What an excellent speaker. I have enjoyed having Grace. You have to come back on the show. I have, honestly, I've loved you. Grace Njogu, ladies and gentlemen, there from Ngao Credit, talking to us about money matters and how to improve our credit score. That brings us to the end. We hope, by the way, you have been challenged. For those of you who thought you were going to Atlanta, Georgia, with HE, Apana, look at your credit score. How to pay our visa? There's some good tips for you, like she has mentioned online. Please take advantage. It's absolutely free. If you would like to comment, if you would like to rewatch this, you're going to catch it on YouTube as well. But let me leave it there and welcome you to our social hour tomorrow at 8 a.m. It's going to be fantastic. Shiko Kaittany wishing you a great day up ahead. Interactive is up next. Bye-bye.
Kili recherche ya motema no na bimikutir na kanisa kievre sukiza ya fo
Kanta ya lala
Zamba kokiotela nzoko monoko
Bebe nanga mona mure Yanga ina yosuka liwa Fidèle Je suis fidèle David Lubete Je suis fidèle Il n'est jamais fatigué Il a toujours des solutions Allez, quelle automobile
Je jette à fort.